What would you do if something was controlling you? Can a vacant space invite in evil? Do certain circumstances cause Jinn to target a family? Today, we test the believability of the Jinn in the empty room.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual.
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That's right. We will tell you if we find these listener submissions believable.
We promise.
To
As
tell you.
always, except for the ones we don't, and we skip it.
One day.
Just imagining looking at like apartments. There's apartment complex when Ethan lived with me.
Yeah,
and Claire, and they just give you keys. They're like, here's 7 keys to these different places because it's like spread out. It's like a complex.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, we trust you'll be back, and if not, we don't really care. And it was like it was fun. You gave yourself your own guided tour.
That's interesting.
Driving around the complex and just checking out rooms.
It's kind of cool. It's very trusting, but cool.
And it's not like you saw the same room 7 times. Like they were all completely different.
That's why I like Timber Top, because the rooms are different.
I guess I didn't say it. There's no reason not to say it.
You've said before.
Yeah, I know. No, they've been under some heat lately. They've had some bad things happen
For bears.
No, fires, people dying.
Jesus Christ.
But I was just imagine you walk in, you look, it's an empty room, except for a Jinn.
Oh.
Which would then make it not empty, but that's okay.
Hey. Well, I guess that's the question. Do you think spirits count?
Are we already going there?
No.
Believable.
Jeez. So today's episode is listener submission. Listener submissions to we have now, I'd say traditional, shorter one, and then longer one.
I like it because it allows 2 people to get into one episode, which means we're kind of getting through our listener submissions a little quicker.
Yeah.
Which means if you submit, you don't have to wait quite as long.
Yes.
And we're not putting out 8-minute episodes.
It's true. But also, this is recorded in the past.
Oh, yeah. It's February right now, but it's January as we record this.
Yes. Yeah. This is about a month away from when this comes out.
Because Charlie is about to make my son very jealous as he goes to hang out with Mickey Mouse.
I am. It's going to be a great time.
Just a bunch of cheese.
But if you want to hear more about that, that'll be on Beyond the Bizarre on Patreon. Let's just get started and jump into the first story. Location, my house.
Oh.
We did give a state, which is cool, Idaho.
Idaho. It could be any house in Idaho.
Any given house in Idaho. I wonder how many houses there are in Idaho.
That's kind of how hauntings are, right? Football is any given Sunday unless it's Cleveland. And hauntings could be any house. Any given house could be
in
haunted.
Idaho. Absolutely. Dan Cummins and Lindsay Cummins live in a house in Idaho.
Could be haunted.
Could be. They say it might be. But this is from Michael. I wonder if he still lives in Idaho. I'm not sure. But this happened, he probably does. This happened last year, 2022. So he probably submitted this like very recently after it happened. But we're now getting to it now. So he starts by saying, thoughts on sleep paralysis, ? So he's asking us, do you think it could be explained by science? We kind of went over that before. Yes.
The episode was published before the submission. I just want to...
Oh, very much so. Or is it like a paranormal experience? I think we kind of went with both.
Yeah, I think there's 2 sides.
And then he said, can entities take advantage of you while you're in a weakened state? Which I think is a fair question.
If they're malicious.
If they're malicious.
I think if you believe in evil entities, why wouldn't they take advantage? They're not like, well, that's not fair.
I want to play by the rules.
Let me give them a nice cup of orange juice and let them,
Orange juice?
That's what you drink when you're sick.
Oh, okay.
And then you get better. Give him 3 days.
Weekend.
Fluff his pillow.
Anyway, I like how he kind of took our formula. He asked us questions, which is funny. But he said, quote,
today, I submit the story.
Said a couple weeks ago, I had an experience that convinced me that sleep paralysis is connected, at least partially, to the supernatural. I don't know if you thought that before. I don't know if you listened to that episode, but this convinced him. The night started out like any other. I got home from work around 9:30, took a shower, and went straight to bed. I have fairly bad insomnia, so naturally, I listened to a podcast, including believe in bizarre, DM, to fall asleep. But my phone was dead this time. However, surprisingly, I was able to fall asleep pretty quickly and slipped into a lucid dream. I don't normally dream, and when I do, it's never a lucid one. This didn't last long, though. I never dream either.
So was he was listening to a podcast when this happened?
His phone died tonight, so he didn't have it on tonight.
That's right. I was going to say, that'd be crazy if it was ours. I wonder what episode. It wouldn't be the sleep paralysis one.
No.
But
probably a more recent one. And then he says, you know the puppets that have strings attached to the limbs?
Marionettes.
Where the puppeteer stands above the stage and moves his hands and the arms of the legs of the puppet, a.k.a. a marionette. Think of that in regards to my dream. I was the puppeteer, and I was holding the reins, directing my dream. Until the reins, I felt them literally being taken from me. The world around me melted into a dark liquid, and out of that liquid crawled a creature, kind of like Corline's mom. And that creature brutally gutted every person I ever loved while I stood helpless in the dream. I woke up to a cold sweat because the dream felt so real. And as I calmed down, I realized I couldn't move. I could see and move my eyes, but I couldn't move my body. Panic began to seep in, and as I tried to will my body to move, I became aware of the whispering and chanting that was being muttered around me. I couldn't make out any words, but it was coming from somewhere in the room. I tried to tune it out, and I shut my eyes and fell back to sleep. I entered the same dream as before, pretty much right where I'd left off. Only creature was chasing me this time. I woke up for the second time, and while I didn't hear any whispering this time, I could see something was hunching over in the corner of my room. I couldn't make out any features, but it was definitely some sort of creature. I closed my eyes and slipped into the dream one more time, and this time it was worse. Gray and dark and disgusting, and I woke up a third time, finally, quickly, only to feel the weight on my chest and to see the dark shape leaning over me. I don't have a cat, and my dog doesn't sleep with me. I still couldn't move, and the feeling of helplessness was terrifying me. I shut my eyes and started praying. I don't even know how long it was before I opened my eyes again, and I realized I can move, and that the weight was gone. I checked my phone, that he left charging overnight, and the time read 3 a.m. I hid under my covers for the rest of the night. Now, this was definitely the most terrifying moment of my life. My sister, however, was a practicing witch, and every once in a while she would bring something into the house that wasn't necessarily good. I've had a lot of paranormal experiences growing up, but I was able to keep calm because I was used to them. I haven't had sleep paralysis since then, but I usually wake up around 3 a.m. once or twice a week from that dream. End quote.
I wonder if his sister's Wicca or if it's a different type of witchcraft that she was doing.
That's an interesting question. I would assume Wicca, but I'm not sure.
I'll be honest. I was going heavy skeptical until like the last 45 seconds.
It's fair.
Because if it was like a one-off experience, like we have a friend that has had an experience like this, and he feels like he was attacked. Like
yes,
it was like an intentional attack. Mm-hmm. But just based on my own beliefs, for this instance, it seemed to me like, so actually, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
When he's saying that he was controlling his dream like a marionette, do you think that is him saying that he was lucid dreaming and he had control of the dream? Or do you think there's really, like, he really was controlling it?
I think that was him saying that he had control of the dream until this thing took it away from him.
So it wasn't like he's using the marionette as an example.
It was a metaphor.
Okay, so because when you're lucid dreaming, I feel like that's like a whole extra layer into everything. So it's not like he had a random dream, saw this thing. Like when you're lucid dreaming, I feel like you're kind of even further into it. And I feel like when he was waking up and his body's still shut down and he's still in that dreamlike state, he was kind of like between consciousness and sleeping. And I think that, especially since he literally went from dream to awake, dream to awake, dream to awake, I feel like there's some blurred lines there where things from the dream could have seeped into the real world, but not really, but because of his dreams.
It's interesting. I have no context for this because I've never had like a lucid dream.
Well, you don't dream, so
not typically, no. Like, I can't remember the last time I dreamed.
I don't have the lucid dreams where you like are so like I can do whatever I want because I'm lucid dreaming. It'll mostly be like maybe I'm in danger and I just have that feeling or belief that it's like, well, this is a dream. So if I get caught or something, then I'll be okay. But I'm not like altering the dream in the ways that some people can.
I remember recently you shared a terrible dream about a horror movie. You knew you were in a horror movie. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I feel like that's what I was referencing, but I don't remember the context of it.
Yeah, I remember you said, like, when you're first talking to, like, another person who was in the dream, you realized, like, you were, like, on set, but when it happened, it became real.
Okay. That sounds very much like a lot of my dreams. The worst dream I ever had was when I talked about this, I think it was 2014, and there was like a meteor was hitting the world. Mm-hmm. I was depressed for days, actually, because of that. But that's just like, it shows how dreams can affect you. Yeah. Now, I would never go unbelievable because I do think that there's always a chance that there is something there. But the reason I kind of moved away from going a hard skeptical is because it felt like it could have been a one-off experience. But then he's like, my sister does
Brings
witchcraft.
Things, yeah.
And not just the fact that she does witchcraft, because then, that you don't want to assume that she's bringing in things because of that. Right. He said that.
He literally said that, yeah.
He said that, and so he said he had paranormal experiences his whole life. So it's not like he's an amateur.
Right. And also, to me, this sounds a lot kind of like the old hag. Mm-hmm. It's like the sleep demon thing. The old hag, it's just if you're unfamiliar, if you don't remember, it's this small, squat creature that is known to jump on your chest during sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm. Kind of looks like the traditional witch.
Yeah.
Like the long hair, the kind of the bony face.
Evil looking.
Evil. Yeah. It's interesting with dreams because it's so much more about feeling than understanding. Because you could wake up from a dream and feel terrified, and then you try to explain it to someone, and they're just like, well, that does not sound that scary.
It's like, you just ate a bowl of soup. Why were you scared? I don't know. It was scary.
And he's like, you got it. Was his family just in a line waiting? like Geneva on or Cedar Point? You're just like, who's next? All right, come up big, gutted.
I don't know. Yeah.
But see, that's the thing where you're like, that's ridiculous. But to this person in that dream, and it's their family, it's horrifying.
And I wonder if the representation of the monster in the dream was almost more real to him because of it was like presenting that way. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
So I wonder if it was more of a shadow entity in his room. Like its outline was there, but it was able to manifest more
in the dream. Like it could reveal itself more so in the dream in that state. I don't know. I mean, like for me, sitting here, it makes it feel like he had a bad dream, and because he woke up in a sleep paralysis state, he was still hallucinating. He was pulling that in the real world. But if I was in that scenario, I'd be terrified, and I would come on here and talk about it. And if you didn't say believable, I'd be very disappointed. So it's like, I understand it's a completely, like, being in that situation versus us talking about it is very different.
But let's move on to our next story. So this next story comes from Nasha, and it is all the way from the country of Bangladesh.
Cool.
Do you know where that is?
It's not here.
It's not here.
Wait, hold on. It's is it in Asia?
It is in Asia.
Listen.
Nailed it. Pretty good.
That's all you're getting from me.
So it's next to India.
Yep, just like I thought.
And this takes place in the city Sylhet, which is, I think it's a pretty big city.
Where's that at in Bangladesh? Oh, you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think the center? I don't know. I have no idea.
Sorry, the borders?
So she said this took place 4 to 5 years. I'm not sure.
Maybe these experiences
in that time could be. That's what I imagine it would be. Don't know the years, but that's okay. So she says, quote, I used to live in a small city in a South Asian country called Bangladesh when this happened.
Sorry, it's funny that she's like, there's this place called Bangladesh. And listen, I have no room to talk because like my geography is dog shit. It's very funny.
It's
a little funny.
I think it's very funny. She used to live with her parents, her sister, her parental grandfather, and 2 maids that were about 18 or 20 when this happened. Quote, the incidents started when my grandfather passed away. I was about 9 years old and extremely attached to him, and spent most of the days in his room before he passed, and continued to do so after he had passed. So my family is Muslim and very religious, but not very superstitious at all. We don't really believe in ghosts or spirits, but we do believe in jinns, because they're mentioned in the Quran. But not to a point where we talk about it all the time or even think about it that often. But one thing that we do believe is that when a place is left vacant for too long, jinns occupy it. And if people haven't been playing in a particular place for a long time, the evil jinns start to live there eventually. Anyway, when my grandfather passed away, nobody but my sister and I were even going in and out of his room. And when we were there, we would stay and watch TV for a little while and then leave. So on a particular day, I was playing hide and seek inside the house. The house had 4 bedrooms. One was my room with my sisters. One was my parents, and one was my grandparents. And the other room was the guest room where the maids lived. So I started playing after about 7 p.m., and it went normally for about an hour and a half when it was my turn to seek. So I ran around the entire house looking for Rima, one of the maids, and I couldn't find her, and I got bored. So I was like, hey, I'm going to go watch some TV right now. She just left her hiding. She just left her.
She's like, hey, maid, clock in. I'm trying to find you.
She just like, it.
She's like, I need a drink. And then she goes in the kitchen. And she's like, I found you.
So I ran off to watch TV in my grandfather's room, which was at the very end of the house. And I was watching, and I suddenly heard a knock on the window across his room. I didn't think much of it because I was too busy with Dragon Ball Z, but I heard it again. I was laughing because I thought it was Rima who was messing with me. So I ran to stand beside the windows, which was frosted, and I waited for her to knock again. But there was a loud thud, and I saw a silhouette of a hand. And it startled me, and I was so embarrassed that I had felt scared. I ran off to my mom angry, and I said that Rima wasn't playing properly, and she was going outside and stalking me and scaring me, and I asked my mom to ask Rima to stop. And almost on cue, Rima stepped out behind the curtain of a window, asked me to stop being so dramatic. And I was honestly shocked because how the hell did she come here? She was outside of the house, and she couldn't have left the front door unlocked, and she didn't ring the doorbell. So I thought it was maybe my other maid, Kushma. So I got really angry, and I just stormed off to my grandfather's room again because I didn't want to play anymore. I went back to watching some more TV when I heard another knock, and this time came from the door. And there was a balcony attached to my grandfather's room, but it was completely closed off by metal bars, which is normal in Bangladesh because of the robberies, and that was what she said, not me. I had no idea. I was obviously very confused and more angry. No 9-year-old likes feeling stupid. No one likes feeling stupid. So I got up and I unlocked the balcony room and swung it open with full force. I wanted to kill whoever was behind that door that was messing with me. And as soon as I did, I saw that there was nothing there. It's hard to explain what my house looked like, but imagine like an old bungalow with a front yard. Of course, this is a layout.
I was just imagining it as a castle.
It was a bungalow with a front yard and also a tall boundary, like a fenced area. And it was just our family living there at the time. And houses in Sylhet were very private. Nobody came in and out of your property. And that's just the norm. So I knew it couldn't have been my neighbor or even my maids because they themselves were afraid to go out at night because of the jam tree. It's this wide, tall tree that Jinn are supposed to live on, and they refuse to step out after sunset, the maids and the neighbors. This was the start. And then every night, my sister and I would stay up and watch the Discovery Channel and talk, and my sister, she was 16 at the time, and I was maybe 10. We would always hear someone running laps in our yard, like running. It was funny at first because I thought it was just a silly old Jinn running like an idiot, and it seemed so funny to us in the moment. So we ignored it because it went on for months, and we would go back for hours and it never really interacted with us. So we left it alone. But one day, our mom decided to stay up with us in our grandfather's room, and she then heard the running as well. And she looked horrified, and her face went pale. She wouldn't move. So my sister and I asked if she was okay, and she just got up and said, "Lock this room and go to bed right now. Don't ever stay up again at night in this room, okay?" She seemed angry, so we didn't say anything, but before we could finish, she heard someone jumping, like hopping behind the window. I first heard the thud, and that had never happened before. And before we knew it, my mom had got up and ran, and we were too busy laughing at our mom running because she was really scared. And it was funny to us because we never seen our mom run before. We stopped staying up late in my grandfather's room after that because our mom would literally guard our rooms and make sure we were in bed. But then we started hearing the running from our room, which was on the opposite side of our grandfather's room. And I remember asking my sister if that the Jinn was a boy or a girl. And she said it was probably a woman. I asked her why she thought it was that. And she said, quote, "I dreamt about her a couple times." And after this went on for about 4 years, we moved to another city, and my dad started renting out our house to other families. These families would never sleep in my grandfather's room at night and refused to go out after 12 a.m. But that's it. End quote. So that is a story. It's interesting to me, the cultural differences.
Like that exact same thing would happen here and we wouldn't think Jinn.
No, we would definitely not think Jinn. We would think ghost.
The Yellow Runner.
Or even the ghost of the grandfather, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
It's kind of assumed, but that's like just based on culture and
But they assume Jinn.
what happens.
Because that room is basically empty for a long time.
They went in it though every now and then.
Every now and again.
Like
but
you
not,
have to be occupied. One must sleep.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It needs to have that like constant living in it.
One must reach slumber. It's interesting role reversal where the kids don't take something seriously, or well, not kids, I guess don't. The kids find something funny or not serious, but the parent does.
Yeah.
Like instead of the kids being afraid of the dark and tells the parents and like, oh, just go back to bed. It's nothing.
Like that classic horror movie trope, right? Your mom's
it's
like,
reversed.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's probably nothing, but she's like, oh my God, we're going to die.
Which makes it so much more severe in terms of, just like if as a kid seeing the gravity of the situation, like if something scary happens, you look to the adult to be cool, calm, have composure. But for you to think something silly and then your mom freaks out, it's kind of remarkable that they kept thinking of it as a joke.
Yeah, it is. It's I wonder why that happened. We can talk about more of that in the discussion.
All right, before we get to the discussion, we like to stop the episode and thank our newest patrons who, as of the recording of this episode, include Bree, Christy, Jessica, and Audrey. Thank you so much for joining our Patreon and supporting the podcast, and everyone else who is a member of the Patreon. We really appreciate you guys. Again, Charlie is not here. He's out in Florida living his best life, so I'll make this brief. Here's a couple things. We talk a lot about the content side, and we love doing the content side, obviously. Behind the scenes stuff, games, quizzes, virtual meetups, watching movies together through Netflix, the reviews and all that stuff. Tons of fun, tons of great stuff. But you also get physical stuff by being a member of our top 2 tiers. If you're in our dedicated tier, after 3 months, you get this exclusive Patreon Believing the Bizarre t-shirt. It's awesome. It's an awesome design. There's a lot going on in the design. There's like a mountain cryptid. You're kind of diving into it. There's a UFO being grabbed by this like octopus thing. It's really cool. And if you're a member of our top tier, the not tier, our newest tier as of last summer, you get that shirt. You still get that shirt after 3 months. And you get an exclusive Patreon hoodie, which has got the Jersey Devil, Mothman, this little campsite with black-eyed kids creeping around, woods all around. It's awesome, awesome design. So you get a shirt, a hoodie, and we haven't talked too much about it because it's still being shipped, and we'll be posting about it all over social media when it gets here. But you get our exclusive annual enamel pin. Last year was our inaugural. It just kind of had our neon logo 2023. This year, if you join the Not tier at any time, if you are a member of the Not tier in 2024, you get our Not Dear 2024 enamel pin. It is awesome. I can't wait to post about it when it gets here. But there's tons of stuff in Patreon, so much bonus content. We appreciate the support, and we love putting out the bonus content. But with that said, let's get back to the main episode.
Oh boy. So these are two listener submissions from like March in 2022.
Maybe they have 3 maids now.
Maybe they moved somewhere else. I wonder if they're still in Bangladesh.
They're playing hide and seek. They don't pay me enough for this shit. Or that's a really good thing to be doing.
Yeah. Instead of actually cleaning.
Yeah.
You're just playing the game.
The mom's like, why does the house always look so bad?
Oh, boy. I could not imagine growing up with maids. Could you?
No.
That's crazy.
I grew up with my grandma.
Yeah.
Like living with my family, but that's obviously not anywhere near having a maid, but it was someone else that would cook and do things like that.
That'd be an interesting scenario. Grandma's the maid.
More tea, Grandma? My 9-year-old self is saying. When's the last time you dunked a donut in coffee?
In coffee?
In coffee, like dunked it in there.
I don't know if I've ever done that, really.
Well, you should.
Okay. The tea made you think of that?
Yeah. When I was very, like 7 or 8, I would sometimes get a little bit of coffee, but a donut for like dunking it.
You know, I did dunk in a coffee before.
Yeah.
This is off the rails. But I got a ham and Swiss croissant, and I dunked that in coffee, and that was delicious.
I don't believe you. I do not believe you.
It was like the bitter with like the savory. It was good.
I feel like they forgot to give you a sauce to dunk it in, and you're like, well, I got this coffee here. Might as well. It's a little dry.
I'm just, I'm a survivor. That's me. I don't get my sauces.
Was this breakfast bun?
So let's talk about the first story. I know we really went over it pretty well, but where do you fall on the scale? Do you find it viable, believable? What do you think?
I'm somewhere between skeptical and viable. My gut instinct was skeptical, but I don't want to downplay the fact that he believes.
Can I ask you, what makes you think skeptical? Because
do you remember like 20 minutes ago when I went on my little thing about it?
Yeah, I do. But I was wondering, like, we kind of talked about it a while ago, but I remember we kind of thought it could have been both.
Yeah.
The scientific...
I would not go unbelievable because I think there is a chance that it could be.
Right.
Like, I'm not like, it's like, like I don't believe in fae.
Right.
So it's easier for me to be like, well, that's just something I don't really believe in.
Mm-hmm.
So no, where it's like ghosts are like, yeah, I lean ghosts. I believe ghosts are real. Same with aliens. When it comes to sleep paralysis, I lean more like the fact that I think it's just our bodies, like our bodies are frozen, but our mind is still racing, and you can pull elements from dream into real life. I do believe that, but I'm not saying that there aren't. I mean, it was today on this episode we said like, could things attack you in a weakened state?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, who knows? There could be negative entities out there that take advantage of what sleep paralysis does to a person.
Right. Like it was happening, and then this entity saw that.
Yeah, but it's like I think it's the frame that I had when we were telling the story. Because they leave I had other paranormal experiences at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it was front loaded with like my sister does witchcraft, she's brought stuff home. I've had paranormal experiences. Here's this, that's different than feeling like it's a one-off. Because if it's a one-off, like if this could happen to anybody, it seems like they were lucid dreaming, which is intense, and they're in it. They're controlling this dream. Something else takes control of it in their head. They see it in the dream. They wake up, but they're in sleep paralysis, so their mind is still racing. They're pulling elements from the dream into the real life, able to fall back asleep, pick up right where I left off. So now you're just kind of like in this in-between stage of like full-on sleep and being completely conscious and awake.
See, I almost feel the other way, though. They had front-loaded this, right? With, like, my sister's a witch, and she brings in entities sometimes that are evil. I would almost feel like...
Sounds like just bringing boyfriends over sometimes.
I would almost feel like he was pre-programmed to believe it was supernatural. But the fact that he saved it to the end, it made me feel like there was a chance that this thing had taken over while he was asleep, because of the way he described it in the dream, the lucid dream, like normal dream, I'm in control, and then he loses the power. And I know that's all in his brain, but what if it's because this entity has entered?
What does that have to do with front loading it?
If he had front loaded it, I would have thought that he'd be more prone to believe it would be paranormal from the start.
I get the impression that he does think it's paranormal.
I think he does too. I really do too, especially after the back end, which I agree. I do think it's paranormal as well. It all comes down to, do you believe this entity was there or not? And I think it was.
I'm going to stick with skeptical.
Okay, that's fair.
What do you go?
I go believable. I mean, I believed in the paranormal element of sleep paralysis from however long ago that was.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
It was a while ago.
Okay, so let's move on to the next story. The Jinn in this empty room. I guess it's not really empty if the Jinn's there, right? You said that. Yeah. You made that joke.
What's her name?
I have to look it up.
Nashia.
Okay. From Bangladesh.
This little place.
This little
you might
country.
Have heard of it.
It's a small country. I mean, comparatively to the United States. Even to India, it's pretty small. But I feel like I know it from something. I don't know what, though. Anyway. So their family believes in Jinn. They're also fairly religious, too. They're Muslims.
Right. I think, when you can always tell how much someone believes in something, I think, by how much it affects their life. If you you believe you shouldn't kill people, it's going to probably lead you to not ever intentionally killing anyone.
Yeah.
Where if you believe that you should eat healthy, but you still snack here and there, it's it matters that, but it's, and those aren't two good examples. But what that leads me to is you can tell how much they believe if they don't like going out at night because of these things.
Mm-hmm.
If it's hey, do you want to come? And this is mixing cultures here. I'm putting an Americanized world on, but do you want to go out and do this thing or get the dinner or something at night? And it's just no,
I can't.
Yeah. Unless that's emphasized in there. It's the little moments of exaggeration or dramatization that somebody from a different culture might feel like we'd pick up on, we wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, because she wrote in there that they don't go out at night, right?
She did, yeah.
So I'm going to take that at face value.
I think that's fair. I think that's a good thing to point out too. It's because they do believe this. That's the first time I've heard of it. The jam tree.
Yeah.
Where Jinn are supposed to live. I wish you would have said that up top where we got this Jinn tree.
Who planted that?
Who said right here?
This is great. Probably the grandfather.
Yeah, right?
No, it's when they were sorry, maid number 2, we can't afford to give you a raise. She's like, oh, that's fine. I'm going to take up gardening this this year. Don't worry about it.
Reema's like, I got something for you. It's a present.
But going back, it shows with how much it affects their life, how much they believe, and I admire that and I acknowledge that. So there's a belief in there, and you see it in the mom with how affected she is. It's interesting that it didn't kind of get passed down.
This reverence, right, of the Jinn.
Unless she purposefully does it to not affect their life. But I don't know. And
I mean, that could just be typical children rebelling against their parents' religion, which happens.
But even if it's not paranormal, and if they're worried about robberies and stuff, and you hear people running around your yard, that is a whole new type of terrifying.
That's another bag of worms right there.
Yeah. That's hey, maid, get the shotgun.
Yeah. Reema's out there all night on guard duty, actually.
Smoking a cigarette. She instead of people robbing the house, but she's got her eyes on the tree.
She is 18 years old, just standing there, just God damn. Let's talk about this though a little bit. The cultural label of it, right? So she labels it as Jinn because they see it as Jinn. If this was in America or England or somewhere Western, they would say it's a ghost. Do you think this is just the situation of same thing, different label? Because it sounds like a ghost to me, but also I understand why they would call it a Jinn.
So what all do we have here? We got the running in the yard and the thud. And what was the emphasis on when she was playing hide and seek? It was a hand?
Yeah, it was knocking against the window. And she thought it was the maid, but it couldn't be the maid.
Well, it wasn't the first maid. Did we figure out where the second maid was? Because when she said the first maid came out from behind the curtain, my mind immediately was well, what if it's the other one?
The second maid? She did not debunk that in the story, I think. So I guess
At night, that other maid is that meme from Get Out where the guy's running in the yard. She's just doing that over and over again. Training.
Well, that's the point. Is the maids didn't go out at night, so that's why she thought it couldn't have been the second maid that was doing the knocking because it was night. So maybe for one night she got over her fears. I don't think that's it.
Well, one night every night for a few months.
Yeah,
that's just what they told the kids, so they didn't get up or go out. It's just
it's like you can't go out there.
They all leave. They go out and have a great time in Bangladesh. I don't know what you do.
Something.
There's probably some stuff. There's a Starbucks somewhere.
There's a Thursdays in Bangladesh.
Nobody knows what that is, Charlie.
There's a club in Bangladesh.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point about because it doesn't have like that one unique characteristic based on this encounter. I'm not saying the lore of a Jinn is the same as the lore of a ghost. I'm not saying that's not true.
No, it's definitely
just
not.
Looking at this slice of a paranormal life, what this is. If it was told in Arkansas, nobody would be thinking it was no one would think it was a Jinn. No one would think it was evil.
Right.
People would probably just assume if you believe in ghosts, that is a ghost.
I think the only thing that really indicates
Are you going to tell her she's wrong?
No.
Are you going to write back to her and be like, I think you're mistaken. I believe it's just a normal ghost.
I would not do that.
White sheet.
I think the only reason it would be a Jinn in this situation, right, would be the idea that this room was empty and that's supposed to, in the lore, call in jinns, right? I don't know that much about the Quran lore of the Jinn. I know some, but not that much.
Well, for her and her mindset and her background culture, she has two things working. She's got the tree and she's got the empty room. And in that, so that's probably like obviously 1 + 2 = Jinn.
Absolutely. And also it does feel a little bit like you've got like a birdhouse and this empty room is just like birdseed on the ground. So it's like obviously going to jump into the birdseed on the ground. Yeah.
That's a good analogy. I don't know. But the nice thing is that we don't dissect the episode and say what it is always. We try sometimes, like the Outlaw Pass. But it's just for us it's kind of like we can't identify what it is. It's more so on the believability scale if something paranormal is happening here.
Absolutely.
Let me just say before we even get to the scale, if it's just people running around their house waiting for an opportunity to potentially burglarize them, that's scary too.
That's really scary. That's like the Strangers. But I mean, ultimately, I go viable.
It's like these motherfuckers never leave. It's been 4 months. Like one of them's running around to get their attention. They're like,
yeah,
they don't know they need to cut the tree down.
Check this out.
Like, god damn. Like, how do we get them out? They're just like, please. So where do you go, Charlie?
I would go viable with this.
So are you going? I know this is literally I said we don't do this, but I'm going to ask you: are you going viable for sure that's a Jinn, or just viable that it's something paranormal? It could be a ghost.
I can't be sure it's a Jinn. To me, it sounds like I said, the label doesn't really matter, but because of where I come from, it sounds like a ghost to me.
Is it more so the running around the house, or is it the experience during hide and seek?
It's the knocking to me. The experience during hide and seek, I think, is what makes me believe it ghosts.
That is like, if it was just that experience, I feel like you could kind of be like, maybe it was this or maybe it was that. I'm just going to assume that every night for months, people aren't running around.
I think that's a fair assumption.
It is. I mean, either way, that's really creepy.
Yeah.
Like, it would be so hard for me to fall asleep hearing that.
Oh, yeah. Just the pounding. And also, the sister dreamt about the Jinn.
That's true. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like she thought it was a her.
That's pretty low key.
Yeah. I was just having dreams about it.
I was in there. Yeah, I'm just dreaming about her.
That actually makes me feel like it's less believable. I'm going to join you. I think whether or not it's a Jinn or some other thing, and part of me is just hoping it's not people. Yeah. Because that's scary in a different way. But I'll join you in viable.
So that is our episode on the Jinn in the empty room.
The empty room.
I love listener submissions. Such fun stories.
With my wife, there'd be no empty room. Fill that shit up.
Yeah, that
walls, furniture.
That episode is out. Yes, that 100-year-old.
It
is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're at a little out of funk here.
Yeah, it's just a little. Anyway, You're right. I would fill that room up with stuff. I think the grandfather stuff was still in there. That's why the reason it felt so desolate to me.
Man, Jinn are going around squatting.
I like the idea of Jinn. They creep me out in such an interesting way. Probably because they are unique to me.
I'll buy you a tree.
Thanks.
For your birthday.
A jam tree.
Yep.
I think I'm saying that right. Honestly, I did my best with the names.
Did you look it up on YouTube?
I did. I looked up a couple.
That's all you can ask.
I did my best. Such a fun place to get a story from Bangladesh. So
it's cool. It is very cool. It makes me feel like I always feel uneducated, paranormal-wise, speaking on anyone's story. But it's like when you mix in a paranormal story from a different culture in a place that I know really nothing about.
Yeah.
It feels weird to even speak on.
Like, it feels like you're out of your element, right?
Not that we never go like, this is true, this is fact, this is the way it is. Like, you and I aren't a podcast where we have an authority like that, or we're masters of like, this is obviously what it is.
I mean, no.
It's just two guys giving their opinions based on what we're told.
Yeah.
And previous things we've discussed.
It's cool.
Entertainment.
It's cool now that we have a reference, though, for Jinn from that Jinn episode.
Yeah.
Which I think you mentioned this a long time ago, but now if we keep expanding, we'll have more of those reference points, those like markers.
Yeah, these episodes are all just 101 classes, and then eventually we get some missions, and we go on further, and then, the more classes. And
that's how school works.
Yeah.
This is an education.
Then you got to skip them, and then you see that sign where it's like every class you skip, you're burning
$75.
$75.
I hate that sign.
I know. I just look at that sign and be like, ugh.
I was like, you know what? It's worth $75 today.
Yeah, I'm tired. But if you like this episode, and you like our previous episodes, if you're on Apple, you can leave a 5-star review. Oh, man, that's great. Any of your thoughts. If you're listening on Spotify, you can comment 100. Well, no, I have no idea what number this one is. You can comment about 200 times each on every episode. Every individual episode has its own little kind of, what did you think of this episode? And you can let us know, and we'll read it, and we'll share it. And if it's sad, then we'll weep.
That's true. All those things are true. But if you also enjoyed the whole catalog so far, and you're like, what can I do to listen to more Tyler and Charlie? And sometimes, Ben, you go to Patreon, and you listen to all the content on there, which is a lot. I'd say a plethora. And you can listen to the fun games and stuff that we talked about early in the episode, I'm sure, and have a good time with us on Patreon. Also, there's ways to interact with us on Patreon that's different than just, listening to the podcast. Like we have our Google, which I love Google.
Google Hangout, Netflix watch parties.
It's more interactive, more personal.
We're there. We're here. We're there too.
We're chatting.
Everywhere. But thank you, everybody, so much for listening. We appreciate you. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
A podcast as bizarre as you are.